I'll answer that. No, they did not, fortunately, have to approve the copyright or the design and layout, which surprised us in a dramatic fashion, because that probably would have taken another 3 months. But just to give you a quick example, when we did the redesign of the Nick Adams stories for the students, we were told that cannot appear anywhere at any time, the actual covers that the students designed. So they're very, very careful of controlling the Hemingway estate. And I think that's not, I think that's good, frankly, in many ways. It does limit reproduction, but that's their purpose. And I'd like to, could everyone give Chad a hand, and we'll go into one more question here. I think there's no, the question is, how did they decide to let us use it for nothing? That is a good question, because they do usually charge minimally, at least for educational purposes. We're a private nonprofit, but we were willing to pay up to a certain amount, which we did not tell them. We don't know. I was very surprised when I got an email and then a fax from the attorney saying we could use this at no cost. I think one of the factors is this is close to going out from copyright protection. That may have been it. It has only been reproduced so few times. The likelihood there's little commercial value in it, but it does create quite a collector's item. And I would like to mention that now, and then Jim can have the rest of the program. We are selling these for $100 each, up 1 to 100. The other 25 are going to archives across the United States that specialize in Hemingway collections. You can purchase these later, or you can purchase them at our information table. And like we said, this is it. It will not be reproduced like this ever again, because that's it. Jim, please.
Thanks for coming out here and being with us. Chad and I are both low talkers. So that's always fun to hear him talk, because I always get a little bit of northern Michigan accent to his voice. But I grew up in Milan, Michigan, a little town south of here, and my father was a sign painter, and he hand-lettered trucks and signs, and so I grew up with art materials and seeing those processes, and I got my education at Eastern Michigan University. I worked with Richard Fairfield, who is still one of my very good friends, and but in my education at Eastern in printmaking, and we did the traditional litho stones and intaglio and woodcuts and things, but we never ever touched on wood engraving. And as a kid, I remember looking through old Civil War books, and I used to look at the illustrations, and I think, how did they do those? You know, because I knew that they were more precise than pen and ink drawing, and it was always a mystery to me of how they reproduced those Civil War battles in such meticulous detail. And so, and I'm a teacher. I teach studio art. I have for my 39th year now. I've taught junior high school and graphic design to non-college bound students. And but printmaking has always remained a passion. Well, I ran across an article maybe 20, 25 years ago in a magazine about wood engraving. And I zeroed in a little bit more, and they started talking about engraving on the end grain of a wood block. And I said, you know, that may be the missing link to what I have always missed on how they reproduce those images. And sure enough, it was wood engraving. And it's probably the least known process in printmaking. Number one, the materials are hard to get, and number two, there's very few people that know about it or teach it. But there was a guy over close to Chicago. Of course, Chicago was the center of the printing industry in the 20th century. And they had something on Dearborn Street there called Printers Row. And all of the publishers and the printers and the engravers were all located on Dearborn Street. Well, one of the last wood engraving, commercial wood engraving companies was on Dearborn Street. It was the Sander Company. And the last son of that company, David Sander, was in Porter, Indiana, which is a kind of an outskirts of Chicago, and he still taught wood engraving. So I sent I sent in to him asking when the next workshop was going to be, and I got something back in July or something like that. So I went over, and I showed up on his doorstep. I mean, it was a squalor. Everything was just beat to hell there. I knocked on the door, and this guy came out. He was one of the seediest looking old guys I ever saw. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here for the wood engraving workshop. Oh, he said, the workshop. Come on in. So there was crap on every surface. I mean, old Colonel Sanders chicken bones. It was just squalor. He took his arm and he swept off the table. And he says, okay, we're ready to start the workshop. So it couldn't have been more, it was like right out of Dickens. And so anyway, this old guy, though, he still knew enough of these processes to teach me how to engrave on wood. And the difference in a wood engraving, once again, on a wood cut, anything from your Japanese wood cut to your Blue Rider wood cuts, they're all done on the side grain of the wood, which, when you have to deal with the grain of the wood, it has its limitations. Certainly, it's a beautiful process. I love it. But if you're a detail-oriented person, wood splinters, you have to be concerned with the direction of the grain, and prints start to break down after about 50 or 75 prints. When you're hand rubbing, and most wood cuts are rubbed by hand, you start to round off those edges. So print number 75 is going to look a little bit different than print number 1, because you have worn that matrix or that block. But wood engraving, because it's on the end grain, those fibers of the wood, there's really no place for those fibers to go, so they can take repeated pressure from a press. So you have that advantage, and being on the end grain of the surface, your tool, which is called a graver, fits in your hand like this. It's actually designed, this little lip on the tool is so that your little finger can hold on to the tool and your hands wrap around it, so that when you're working on that surface, you have just ultimate control. And all wood engravers, they prize these tools like gold. There's still one guy in Brooklyn that makes them, but they're not of the quality of the old ones. So if you can get a hold of old engraving gravers, they're always something to hang on to. But that's where this process comes from. And Chad does some wood engraving, and there's some of our letterpress printers around that do it. But I actually I teach it. Various printmaking workshops and stuff, and a lot of times I'm hired because I'm the only guy that teaches it or knows it. So I've kind of carried that banner for now for a number of years, and